Welcome to In the Zone. Alongside Owen Russell and Bill Cullen, I'm your host, Aaron Chun. As the MLB playoffs continue on and football nears midseason, we've got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. In the Zone starts now. Starting out in the MLB, the American League Championship Series is heating up as the Texas Rangers have continued to dominate, this time against the reigning champion Houston Astros. The Rangers have been this year's bandwagon team to hop on, and they have given every reason for us to believe that they could maybe go the distance this year. Are you hopping on the bandwagon, Owen? Or do you think the Astros can make it back to the World Series?
I have been on this bandwagon since the start of the postseason, I have to say. And honestly, I have to admit, I think the Rangers should be the favorites right now to win the whole thing. Nothing against Philly, nothing against Houston, nothing against any of the other team in it. This team was built to win. The Rangers were built to win. You got Simeon, you got all these players, Eovaldi, for example. This team was built for the sole purpose of winning the World Series. Now, will they do it? It's the Rangers. I don't know. They have a history of choking at this kind of stage.
True.
Look back to 2011, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Rough time for them.
They still have bad dreams of the third baseman from the Cardinals there.
Yeah.
But no, I think that at the end of the day, it's theirs to win. It would be disappointing otherwise.
Yeah, I get it. Billy, what do you think?
I would say that, yes, Texas right now should be the favorite, at least in that series, but we can all agree that the Houston Astros should not be should not be forgotten about. They're going to make this a series, the bottom line. This is going to at least go back to Houston. I think that needs to be said. Something that needs to be part of the discussion. The Houston Astros, out of all playoff teams this year, were the worst team at home, and they had the second best overall road record in all of baseball. Now, what's good about the Rangers is their starting rotation, like you said, Eovaldi, Jordan Montgomery's been unbelievable, and they're getting Max Scherzer back.
That's going to be insane.
Is better than what the Astros have shown. But let's be honest, the Rangers have one of the worst bullpens actually in all of baseball this year, and the Astros bullpen is dynamite. So if the Astro hitters are able to take advantage of the starters early, this game could get ugly fast, and I think that they need to get on Scherzer early, especially the fact that he hasn't played since September.
Yeah, and that's been a big thing for the Rangers is that Scherzer, and not just the Rangers and the Mets too, where he started, is that he's been very up and down this year. He's had a few starts where he's given up like 5 or more runs, and he's had a few starts where he's given up no runs. So I think looking at the series, I think Scherzer is arguably the biggest X factor for the Rangers because with the way Montgomery's been performing, with the way Eovaldi's been performing, I think you combine Scherzer, if you get him at his best, that's probably the best top 3 you have of all the 4 postseason teams left competing with the Phillies.
What I'm really impressed about is that they're doing this against the reigning World Series champions, the Astros, who haven't really had as much of a turnover from last season as you want.
Yeah.
I mean, this is pretty much the same team that played last year against the Phillies and beat them. I think if the Rangers keep performing the way they do, it's just going to be good. Honestly, I hope it's not the Astros this year because Chas McCormick, I still have bad dreams of that catch from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
Brutal.
Still can't talk about it here. But anyways, in the National League, the Phillies have continued to prove their doubters wrong and make their supporters very happy. Supporters like me.
Oh my God.
Their Game 1 win against the Diamondbacks was much needed for the region, especially after the Eagles' embarrassing loss to the Jets, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. Then, after winning 10-0 in Game 2, you can't help but think that they've got this thing in the bag. So, Bill, what can we make of the Phillies right now? Can they go the distance this year again and maybe a bit farther?
I believe the Phillies. You said the Rangers. I believe the Phillies should be the favorite. I just can't get over the fact that this team in 8 games in the postseason have 19 home runs and have only allowed 14.
That is ridiculous.
That is historic. Like what they are doing right now is historic. And And what we talked about their three-headed monster that the Rangers have in the starting rotation, well, let's talk about the Phillies. I mean, what Zach Wheeler right now is actually having the worst of the three starting pitchers, and his ERA is 2.37. Like, that is ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have Aaron Noel under a 1 ERA right now, and Ranger Suarez is a 1.04 in 8 2/3, and he's going to probably get the start in Game 3. And also the bullpen for the Phillies, which is the most underrated aspect of this team,
100%.
has given up 4 runs in 8 games. They have been shutting the door down. And let's be honest, outside of the, by the way, don't want to talk about this, the only loss the Phillies had, the Austin Riley home run,
Yeah.
great hit. It was a better hit than it was, it
A
was
bad pitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I thought the pitch wasn't that bad. A lot of people, they want to discuss about it. But the good thing with the Phillies is that every single person is contributing, and especially in different ways.
Right.
Everyone in the batting order has had some sort of effect, even though I know Johan Rojas, I think, only has 1 hit throughout the whole
Yeah, I
postseason.
think 1 or 2.
But he's been dynamite out in center field.
Yeah.
Bohm has been struggling a little bit, but what he's been doing on the other side of the diamond has been outstanding.
And you got a big hit last night, too, I think.
He did. He got a big RBI double, I believe.
Can't overlook Castellanos. He's been playing out of his mind this entire
With the whole order,
season.
I mean, you could say every single name with Trey Turner and Schwarber and Harper and just Bryson Stott too, and JT has been hitting the ball well. To me, no matter what happens in Game 3, the series is still in the hands of Philly because of the fact that, first off, the Phillies won 3 out of 4 in Arizona in the regular season. They're going to have to see Wheeler and Nola again.
Right.
And to me, I don't see where the Diamondbacks are in a good spot within these next couple games at home.
I don't either at all. I would agree with the idea that the Phillies are going to come out of the NL. I don't know if they're the World Series favorites against the Rangers, but definitely the NL. Nothing against the Diamondbacks, because we have to give respect to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
This is a young team. They've changed that culture there. Corbin Carroll is incredible. But this is Philly's year to win the NL again. It's going to be a good World Series, whoever they play.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
I mean, I think Aaron Noel was arguably the biggest X factor for this team. We know coming into this season, big expectations, especially in a contract year for him. He ended up having his worst career year. And I think that was a big thing of what Aaron Noel are we going to get. Because there was a point in time where people are saying, okay, Wheeler starts Game 1. Who do we start Game 2? Because Aaron Noel has not been consistent enough. Well, he's managed to prove a lot of people wrong, and I think that's been big. And again, I think that bullpen's been big. I think the face value numbers kind of oversell it. There's been a couple of kind of heart attacks, but as our cameraman Travis keeps pointing out, Phillies just can't stop hitting home runs. I mean, they've gone ahead with a home run in, probably at least 3 or 4 of these games. They've jumped out to a first inning home run.
Yep.
And I mean, that's going to be big for them going forward. And another thing we saw last night is they started getting some more hits with runners in scoring position. They need that because a lot of their home runs have been solo home runs, and they've lived to tell the tale so far. But we've saw some games, like Game 2 of the NLDS. We saw some games where they left a lot of guys on, and you're kind of left thinking, they go 3 for 10 instead of 2 for 10. Maybe they score 5 runs instead of 4, and maybe they win that game. So I think that's going to be a big thing for them going forward with that offense. But I still believe in them to win the World Series. And I believe enough that I made this promise to our producer, Zach Humphreys.
Ooh.
And Liam Crane, I think, will be hearing about this promise for the first time, as well as the rest of you. But we're 6 wins away from the Phillies winning the World Series. We have to get there, yes. But Dancing on My Own has become the song of Philly the last 2 years. And my promise to everyone here is that if the Phillies do indeed win the World Series, I will make In the Zone history with our first live singing performance
my
of
goodness.
Dancing on My Own.
This is
So we got to get there. We got to get there. 2 more wins to make it. 6 more wins to win it all.
I suddenly want a Red October to happen, folks.
Absolutely.
Here,
Gave me more of a reason. Let's go. Get the towel
take the
going.
rally towel.
Woo!
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to now send it over to Kymari Clarke to get the latest in Marauder Athletics. Kymari?
Thanks, Aaron. High stakes, game changers, and record breakers sums up this past weekend in Millersville Athletics. Our Marauders were busy at Beamer Surfer this homecoming weekend as they faced tough competition in the middle of the fall athletics season. In football, the Marauders fell to Shepherd University with a score of 33-17. Although Ville was unable to secure the win, running back Yahi Morris set a career-high 229 rushing yards record and was able to tie the school record of a 93-yard run in the third quarter. The team will tackle Shippensburg University this upcoming Saturday. It's been a week of wins on the way to finishing out the season for our Millersville men's and women's golf teams. Men's golf earned their first team win since the 2019 season with a victory at the Dickinson Invitational, while the women won the LVC Invitational for the third year in a row. Additionally, our soccer teams have been scoring goals and playing hard with a soccer senior day for the women and men's wins at both Shippensburg and Lock Haven. The men's team now moves the Marauders up to first in the PSAC East standings. In other news, our fall tennis season wrapped up with home matches just as our Ville swimming season kicked off the PSAC Fall Invitational. Now we send it back to the desk for the latest in college football. Aaron?
Thanks, Kymari. We're now going to dive into college football and begin by taking a look at the rankings after Week 7. As we can see, the top 4 teams in the rankings have continued to stay strong and moved after Week 8, while some other teams have made themselves known beneath them. Washington has moved up to 5th, Notre Dame has moved up 6 spots to get to 15th, and USC has fallen all the way out of the top 10 down to the 18th spot. Many interesting things happened this week in college football. So, Owen, what do you make of these rankings? Are there anything that you disagree with personally?
Well, looking at that, first off, I have to say I really think Washington should be in the top 4. They just beat Oregon this weekend.
Yeah.
Mike Penix Jr., oh my gosh, he looks like a Heisman contender. Like, he came out of nowhere almost. It's ridiculous. But other than that, I would say it looks pretty good. I would switch Florida State with Washington.
Okay.
As always, I have to say Penn State should be higher. I personally think they should be number 1.
Yeah.
They thrashed the Minutemen. They thrashed UMass. And on homecoming weekend, too, my goodness. It was a destruction. I think after they beat Ohio State this weekend, they're going to be in their rightful spot. But other than that, I would say Ole Miss, I'm still surprised at. Oregon State is the biggest surprise to me coming into this season. I really think that if Oregon State goes undefeated and wins the Pac-12 championship, they have a viable claim to be in the playoff, too.
Right.
It's just all these teams are going to be doing good. The team I think is going to fall off out of all of them is Notre Dame, though. I really think Notre Dame, they just consistently disappoint every year for me personally, and I just don't see them getting to the playoffs. I see them losing at least 2 of their games going forward.
Right. Billy, what do you think?
I wanted to start off with Penn State. I find it hard to believe that they just moved down 1 spot
They
after
moved
winning
down
by
a spot.
63
That's
to
the
nothing.
ridiculous thing about
And people
it.
might say, well, who do they beat? It's like, okay, fine. But Oklahoma didn't move anywhere in their rankings. But Penn State moved down after winning by 63 points. I just want to throw that
Call
out
me
there.
a biased Penn State fan. I always feel like these rankings have something out against the Nittany Lions.
Absolutely. And I
always
do think that they're going to go out there against Ohio State, and I do think that they're going to beat them.
Oh, I do
Because
too.
Ohio State really hasn't played a clean game yet, and I think Penn State is just going to run the ball and be more physical.
Kyle McCord's too green, in my
But
opinion.
I guess also being biased here, maybe Michigan being at number 2 to me. What have they done? Seriously, what they have been in all their games? They have had points where it's like they don't look right. Like they've played a bad quarter every single game, and they don't play anybody ranked or anybody that's really competitive until November 11th, which is at Penn State.
Ooh.
That is their first game. That's their first test. They haven't really played anybody yet. Similar to, I guess, Georgia, but I respect Georgia a little bit more because they have that championship
Georgia
pedigree.
has that.
The issue with them coming up is they're going to have Brock Bowers out essentially for the rest of the regular season.
Devastating.
And that's their
Devastating.
best player on offense, and he is unbelievable. A team that I believe is going to move up, maybe not a specific team, but the winner of Alabama-Tennessee is going to have a chance to be able to say, hey, maybe we deserve to be put back in the college football playoff talk.
If it's Alabama, I don't know about that. Alabama has not looked like
They
the
haven't
Alabama team.
They haven't played a clean game yet. That is 100% true. But in their next 2 games, they play 17 Tennessee at home, and then they play, I believe, at LSU, who was ranked 19th in the country.
my
If they go out there and beat both those teams, right now they've been stuck at 11 since they lost to Texas. If they win both those games, and they would be at that point on a 6-game winning streak, it's hard to say that they're not at least in the conversation.
I agree. LSU, they've looked a little bit suspect to me sometimes this season, but when haven't they since Joe Burrow's era? Sure. I mean, I think that Alabama can beat them. I don't know about Tennessee, though.
Right.
Alabama is just, they're
Alabama, too.
clunky this year. They're not a playoff team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just think that if there's any team that can get in there without looking that great, it's Alabama.
Also, what happened to Colorado? I just gotta say that.
Oh,
my
man.
God. The fall off was hard.
29-0.
Who
Oh.
was it that said Josh was the one who said they
Oh,
would fall
no.
off? Man, he's
Josh.
taking his victory laps.
Oh, no.
Oh, well, diving into the specifics of Week 7 college football, let's talk about Oregon-Washington.
All right.
Ranked 7th and 8th respectively, these two teams were coming in about as even as two teams possibly could be. This led to a highly anticipated matchup for viewers, and, well, it did not disappoint. The Huskies ended up beating the Ducks by a mere field goal after some elite offense and back-and-forth performances by both teams. Clearly, this game had the biggest impact of any game in Week 8. So, Bill, what can we make of this game?
I want to first off and say Michael Penix is that guy. He is that
Yes.
dude. And as of right now, he should be in at least in the top 3 or 2 in the Heisman Trophy.
Top
canon.
3 or 2. He should be top 1.
I'm saying at least.
Caleb Williams.
I believe he is. I can. There's people who argue different. You know, I'm not going to get into it. But anyways, he should absolutely be in the conversation after throwing for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. By the way, can we talk about that? Right before that final drive, he's on the sidelines singing. Like he's not even like he's like not nervous. He's calm. And even though this is the first time we're really seeing it at Washington, but we saw it in Indiana when he was there in 2020. When he was there, he beat Penn State in a big-time game at Indiana. He was able to hang in there with Ohio State when they went to the national
Any Penn
championship that
State
year.
fan could have told you that was going to happen, though. It's the Penn State way.
Well, yeah,
It's the
of
big
course.
games.
But just for them, I mean, he played unbelievable. And the two receivers they have on the outside with Odunze and Polk are, I mean, they're 2
They're
first-round
so
picks.
deep at receiver.
They're amazing on the outside. Now the defense didn't play great, but in all their games they haven't played great. But they just did enough. They made enough plays to win the game. And but for Oregon, they played great. They played a very good game. They had 514 yards of offense.
That's
They ran
wild.
for over 200 yards. Bo Nix threw for 330 and 2 touchdowns. Like he wasn't the problem, and he's also in the conversation.
Bo Nix
for-
has been around for so long, and he's just gotten better every year that he's been
Exactly.
playing college football. He should be a Heisman contender as well.
Even with that game, even though they lost, he was not the reason they lost. He brought them on a late drive in the fourth quarter, had an opportunity to tie the game,
Right.
but unfortunately they didn't make the kick. But let's be honest, in college football, it is hard to win on the road, especially at a hostile environment like Washington, which, again, like we talked about with the Penn State and Ohio State game, it's going to be tough for Penn State to go to Ohio State and win.
Yes.
I felt much differently if it was at Beaver Stadium, but because they have to go on the road, it's going to be tough. But both those teams played a hell of a game. I am happy that they didn't drop Oregon that low. I think they only went from 8 to 9.
Or
They have
both
been
teams
playing
can afford to
outstanding.
lose that game, I feel. Not afford to lose it if you want to make the playoffs.
Well, they were on the road.
But I think it's understandable that Oregon only dropped so far. I really think that this spoke more about Washington's potential as a football team more than it is their championship aspirations. I don't think they're going to win the championship. I really don't. I think they're just not used to that big limelight, that spotlight, and I think they're going to wilt under that light. But I just think they definitely prove that they belong with these top teams, and I definitely think that Michael Penix should be a Heisman frontrunner.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes, especially with the Pac-12 kind of falling apart after this year. So
Oh, yeah.
definitely going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, transitioning over now to the NFL, Week 6 is in the books, and the biggest headline to come out of it, no more teams are undefeated. This comes after the 49ers and the Eagles both lost to, well, some underwhelming opponents, to put it nicely. There are many teams with 5-1 records, like the Eagles and Niners have, but none of them really stand out as obvious favorites in either conference. Owen, as a Browns fan, I know this Niners loss, you got to be feeling really good about
Oh
that
my
now, but the question needs to be asked, are the Niners still legit, and are there really any good teams this year?
So I'm going to give you a funny story. I was watching the game at my
boy.
grandma's house on Sunday, and at the end, when Moody missed the field goal, I literally almost collapsed onto the floor and I was so happy, dude. It was the greatest, the pinnacle of my Browns fandom up to now,
Yeah.
as far as I've been in college.
That's
But
unfortunate.
going to the question, I think the 49ers, they're a good team. They
Yeah.
are. And that's the big thing. That's what makes this win so much bigger for Cleveland, is that they beat a genuinely good team with a high-powered offense. They held that high-powered offense to looking like, they made Brock Purdy look like a sophomore quarterback, looked
Yeah.
like he was playing at his level. And I think that defense is special. Browns defense this year is incredible. They have all the tools that they can that they need to go far in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Niners, I have no worries about them. They're going to be the top seed in the NFC, I feel.
Yeah, and like you said, I think this game said more about the Browns than it did the Niners. I think the Niners have played better more times this year than they've played.
And you got to keep in mind that Debo and C-Mac were off the field at points in that game.
Right.
And they did not. It was not a pretty game for the Niners, but that's football. You should expect that.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles losing to the Jets was a little bit more shocking. I think
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but that loss is completely on him. He sees it. He is going to do better going forward. If there are any other good teams in the league, not really good, but I would say the Buccaneers are a scrappy team. They're going to be better than people said.
Okay.
I think that the Cowboys are also good if Dak Prescott can keep it under control. Other than that, I would say the Rams, based on their wide receivers. These are some sneaky teams that could be good. They have potential. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I see. Well, Bill, what do you think?
Well, I want to first and foremost say what you said about the Browns is absolutely correct. That defense is, in my opinion, the best in the league. They are unbelievable. They just know how to get after the quarterback, and they suffocate the receivers. The Niners, their roster is very good. They are one of the best teams in the league for a reason. But they have a ceiling because of Brock Purdy. They can't play from behind. They can't play knowing that they can't run the ball. And that's going to be an issue, and that's going to hurt them down the line. If we had to pick the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, it's hard not to say the Kansas City Chiefs. The fact that they defensively are top 5 in the league in everything. They are unbelievable in defense, and they're just getting Chris Jones back. Their running game has been great. They run for almost 100 yards a game with Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon. The fact that their issue is their passing game with the best quarterback in football is hilarious.
Yeah.
It is.
And that's when you know they're the best team in the league. Now, what you said about the Eagles being a little bit more shocking than the Niners, I don't know about that. And the reason I say that is because as much as the Niners were banged up, and they got banged up during the game, the Eagles were banged up the entire game. They lost Darius Slay, Jalen Carter, Lane Johnson, and the list goes on defensively. I mean, at one point they had both not only their starting safeties, but their backup safeties hurt. And you look at their linebackers, they're banged up as well. I'm not trying to make excuses. They played awful, and they should. And Jalen Hurts, granted, he threw 3 picks. 2 of them were really not on him. One, his arm got hit. The other one, Dallas Goedert just threw the ball to Quinnen Williams. But other than that, he has to play better. And the play calling, you have to run the ball against the Jets. I don't care that Sauce Gardner's out. You have the best running game in football when you want to do it. And the fact that you laid off the gas pedal and not run the ball against that team and just show you're more physical than they are, That is what makes me nervous, is the play calling from that team.
Yeah,
from the team.
I mean, that was the biggest thing I think I saw. And I mean, what I've seen, what I've heard from the Eagles is that it really feels like they haven't played their best game yet this year. It feels like they've just done it in parts of games. You'll see the ceiling of the Eagles. But, I mean, other teams we're talking about, the Chiefs, you're forgetting someone really important. You're forgetting Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I mean, that's a big X factor.
Put them on the map, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to. But anyways, let's give some love to a team that really hasn't gotten any for as long as they've existed. The Detroit Lions are looking like a top 5 NFL team right now. So they went down to Tampa Bay and did not give up a single touchdown to them coming off their bye week. That says a lot about this Lions team. They've really hit the ground running after week 1. With a big win against the Kansas City Chiefs to open their season, and they've only gotten better with each week. Bill, is it an overreaction to say that the Lions are Super Bowl contenders this year?
I do not think it's an overreaction to say they're at least a contender. I mean, they got the components of a Super Bowl team. They've played, they got great quarterback play from Jared Goff. He's been playing at a high level this year. They have a top 5 offensive line, so they're protecting the quarterback, and they're also able to run. They have a great mix of doing both. And they have one of the best pass rushers in Aiden Hutchinson. He looks funny getting to the quarterback if you've ever seen him get to the passer, but he is electric, and he knows how to get there. And when you have a number 1 receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you have some of the other components like Josh Reynolds and Jamison Williams, and they also have Marvin Jones, who used to be a Lion from a few years ago, and with Sam Laporta at tight end, they just have the team that they built around with the way that Dan Campbell coaches that team. I mean, he can make me go through a brick wall.
Yeah.
And then with the great play calling that they're able to do from Ben Johnson, even though the defense is not, they don't have a lot of big names, but what they do well is getting after the quarterback and they don't give up the big play, they don't give up cheap points, which is all you can really ask from a team, because especially with that offense, they could put up 31 against anybody.
Absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, see the conference they're playing, the division they're playing in. The NFC North is not the same NFC North we've become used to. This is theirs to win. That's their division to win, is what I'm saying. Goff, I've seen some reports saying that Goff could be a Super Bowl contender, MVP contender by the end of the year, and I completely agree with that because he has been managing that team very well.
Right.
Somebody I want to shout out is David Montgomery, because David Montgomery has been, in my opinion, the offensive player on that team, like the star player on that team. He has shown up when they needed. He's gotten a lot of good games so far. And Aiden Hutchinson on that defense, I saw a meme where someone said he looked like Waluigi running to the quarterback into it. I really do think that this Lions team is good. I really think that they are set up to win a Super Bowl. My big concern is Dan Campbell, though, because I do like Dan Campbell. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's a solid coach. I don't know if he is a Super Bowl winning coach. He's had some mistakes in the past. He's shown that he's vulnerable to coaching mistakes like everybody else. It really depends on how he maintains his composure and his ability to coach in high-pressure situations. Because the Lions haven't had that many in the past 20 years.
Here's what I'll say about that. If you want to say composure, sure, because there are times the issue with him is he's a very aggressive coach. Like he did a fake punt at his own 20 in week 1. Like that, you don't.
I love that.
You don't see that often. But the thing is, that aggressive nature your team loves. Remember Green Bay game last year, week 18, final week of the season. They weren't making the playoffs, but they went for it on 4th and 2. Like they probably shouldn't have. And granted, could that hurt them? Sure.
In a game against someone like the 49ers, that could really kill them, in my opinion.
But against a team who, let's be honest, the 49ers are a better roster than the Lions. I would want to be more aggressive and not be conservative and let their players overtake the game.
I can see your point. I don't know, though. It's just when you're in that position, you aren't really looking to make as big of a splash as you want. You're trying to win the game. You're trying to advance. You're trying to get to the next stage. And I feel like it could come back to bite the Lions on the butt. And I really do like Detroit. I think they can win the NFC North, at least. Do I think they can manage to get to the Super Bowl? I want to see it. That would be very fun. Yeah. But I don't know. It's going to come down to that. And it's going to be interesting to see.
You know, I would say if there's someone that Dan Campbell reminds me of, he reminds me of Rob Thompson. Because even when the Lions were terrible, they would run through a wall for that guy. And I think he's just going to get better with this team around him. But
absolutely,
we'll have to save it for another episode, as that'll do it for this one of In the Zone. For Owen Russell, Bill Cullen, and Kymari Clarke, and the entire In the Zone crew, I'm Aaron Chun. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you right here next week on In the Zone.